I've been watching the Pokémon anime for just about 20 years at this point, and with the Pokémon Journeys series concluding, and an epilogue series definitively wrapping up Ash's storyline before the start of the new series just around the corner, I can't think of a better time to look back on this latest chapter of the Pokémon anime. Pokémon Journeys has a very mixed reception, quite possibly the most divisive response from the fanbase out of all Pokémon series. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people despise it. And then there are those weird individuals, absolute gremlin people who really love this series. Take a wild guess what category I fall into. I know it's not the most popular opinion, but if I cared about being popular, I wouldn't be telling you that I absolutely love Pokémon Journeys. Something about this series really resonates with me. Whether it's the relatable and endearing characters, the truly realized world of Pokémon, or the buckets of fan service it constantly shoves down my throat, I can't help it. I know it has flaws and I understand why people dislike it, but I don't have to let that ruin my enjoyment. And so, in celebration of one of my favorite Pokémon series coming to a close, I figured I'd talk about some of my favorite episodes to help explain why I love it so much. Maybe I'll convert some people into enjoying the series more. But in all honesty, I just want to gush about this series now that it's fully complete. Also, if you're wondering why I'm showing still images instead of footage from the episodes, I don't want to risk this video getting copyright claimed. It's probably in just as much risk of being copyright claimed regardless, but hey, at least the thought counts? Feel free to listen to this video like a podcast if you want. You won't be missing much. And if you like this video and want to see me discuss my favorite episodes of other Pokémon anime series, be sure to like and subscribe. If this video gets to 500 likes, I'll get started working on a video for my favorite episodes of the Sun and Moon anime. And if it gets to 1,000, I'll talk about the XY series. Alright, I've shilled myself long enough. Let's get this journey started, baby! What better episode to start this list than the episode that starts the entire series? Kind of. Episode 1 focuses on the backstory of Ash's Pikachu as a Pichu, as well as Go and Chloe's past in Professor Oak's research camp, which is cute and interesting. But the real start to Pokémon Journeys comes in Episode 2. Legends? Go. Friends? Go. This is how you start a Pokémon series. We get a quick reintroduction to Ash, establish Go and Chloe's defining characterization very quickly, debut the Cerise Institute as the home base of operations for the series, and still have enough time left over for a giant raid battle with Lugia that leads to Ash and Go's fateful meeting aboard the legendary Pokemon, as they go on an adventure throughout the region. Not only does all this happen in one episode, this all happens in the second episode of the series. Journey sure is setting the bar high. Really hope it can live up to that standard. This episode has stunning visuals, both in terms of super fluid animation and gorgeous locations. But I think what I appreciate most about this episode is how quickly and efficiently it introduces Go and Chloe. Go is shown immediately to be an intellectual contrast to Ash, using patterns to find Lugia's location and documenting their journey. Yet he's also a kindred spirit, so excited to learn about Pokemon that he skips school at just the chance of seeing a rare Pokemon. Chloe is a much colder character in this episode than she would later become, being completely disinterested in Go's obsession with Pokemon, and providing a lot of snark towards the two boys. Sure, I like the Chloe that gets excited to hang out with her two idiot friends, but I'm not gonna lie, I sometimes miss the more sassy portrayal she had at the start. It certainly led to some great comedy if nothing else. There's not much else to say about this episode. It's a masterclass in setting up the entire Pokémon Journey series, and surely the show only goes up from here. Right? I'm fairly certain I'm the only Pokémon Journeys fan who would have this episode in their top 10, but this is my list, and you can't stop me from putting Memories of a Warming Kindness on it. I'd say this episode is a guilty pleasure of mine, since it's an often overlooked and forgotten episode, but that would imply that I feel guilty for liking it. Sure, action and adventure and competitions are fun, but it's sometimes nice to take things slow every once in a while. I love episodes that explore the supporting cast. As soon as Krissa and Ren were introduced, I was hoping they'd each get their own spotlight episodes at some point. Thankfully, they both got great episodes, but if I had to pick a favorite, it would go to Krissa's. Not much happens in this episode, and yet I love every second of it. It starts with an overview of Krissa working at the Cerise Institute, basically running the place during Professor Cerise's absence. It's simple, but I like it, and it does a great job of showcasing Krissa's confidence and capability, something that makes her a role model to Chloe. After work, we get a lovely girls' night out and girls' night in with Krissa and Chloe, trying different foods, talking self-care routines, and exchanging advice. This episode has a really warm intimacy to it. Like, Chloe isn't spending the night at Krissa's because she has to. She genuinely admires Krissa, and Krissa clearly loves guiding Chloe and telling her about her experiences, so it's just a really wholesome and sweet episode. One thing I appreciate this episode for touching on is depression, which is a surprisingly serious topic for the Pokemon anime to cover, and weirdly enough, this isn't the last time I'm going to bring it up for this video. It's not explored too deeply in this episode, but I like that the kindness and generosity from a stranger helps lift Krista from her negative feelings. It's really cute, setting up this almost love story that has incredible payoff, all courtesy of a Psyduck wearing a scarf. I mean, I probably could have just brought up the Psyduck wearing a scarf and nobody would have questioned this episode's placement on the list, but I genuinely appreciate this episode for its mellow pace, exploration of often overlooked aspects of the Pokemon world, and wholesome story of overcoming negativity thanks to the kindness of others. Team Rocket has always been my favorite part of the anime. Even when they're poorly executed, they still put a smile on my face. So it should come as no surprise that episodes focusing on Team Rocket always rank among my favorites. Journeys is no exception, with most Team Rocket focused episodes being quite enjoyable to me, whether it comes down to comedy, action, or heartfelt stories that really show the good in this group of goons. And of all these stories, my favorite is the one where they start a podcast. Radio Lulled the Mischievous Stars is one of the weirdest episodes of Pokemon, focusing on Team Rocket hosting a radio show to recruit new members. On the surface, it's a simple Team Rocket scheme, but in actuality, it's a story about struggling content creators trying to stand out, making changes to appeal to the masses, building a small, loyal fanbase that grows bit by bit, and giving advice to both the characters in the episode and the people watching. It shouldn't come as a shock that this episode resonates with me. The struggles of trying to stand out and gain a following are relatable to any content creator, and not only is it handled somewhat believably, but it's entertaining since it's focused on these three ding-dongs. Like Memories of a Warming Kindness, this episode has a cozy intimacy to it that evokes memories of listening to your favorite radio show or podcast. It's such a simple thing, but it's a nostalgic feeling nonetheless, especially as we see Professor Cerise and Ren discuss the shift in media distribution from live radio to the internet. And it's just a really sweet story too. Team Rocket eventually does build up a small fanbase, answering viewer questions and even giving out prizes, including James's prized premiere ball. It's really cute, but it's also really funny considering they give it to Ren after he writes in with a story about Ash and Go's goals, and Team Rocket unknowingly encourages the two to keep on pursuit of their dreams. Add in some entertaining radio show segments and some cute cameos like Brock, Alistair, Silent, and even the narrator. Yeah, the narrator's a character in this story, and you get an episode that, while not for everyone, resonates with me as a personal favorite. Now this is the kind of episode I bet you expected on this list. If there's one thing Pokémon Journeys is known for, it would be its use of returning characters from throughout the Pokémon anime's long history. Whether it's Ash's former traveling companions making huge steps towards their goals, old opponents reasserting their strength and dominance in the World Coronation series, or Gary being introduced as a rival for Go surprisingly enough, every time a character is brought back in Pokémon Journeys, it's a spectacle. If there's one episode that I can point to and praise for its sheer fan service, it would be Friends, Rivals, Lend Me Your Spirit. This one's a twofer, featuring all of Ash's Pokemon at Professor Oak's lab, supporting and training the newbies on the World Coronation Series team. But it also includes Paul, Ash's greatest rival. Don't even try to argue about this one, we all know it's the truth. If I see anyone comment that Alon was Ash's greatest rival, you're getting hit with a block fatter than a traffic-stopping Snorlax. Paul is a character that could have easily been an opponent for Ash to face in his rise to the Masters 8 tournament, or potentially even in the Masters 8 tournament. But the story of Ash and Paul as opponents has already been concluded in such a satisfying way that it's completely unnecessary to return to it. So why is he here then? Well, Paul actually plays a very similar role to his role in Diamond and Pearl. More than just being a challenger for Ash to defeat, Paul was this ever-present wall in Ash's way. Ash could triumph over gym leaders and win other official tournaments and battles with ease, but there was always the looming reality that at some point, Ash needed to defeat Paul to reach the top. So there's no better character to come in at the 11th hour, days before the Masters 8 tournament, to help Ash train than Paul himself. This episode is just a ton of fun. All of Ash's old Pokemon get some spotlight, especially the fire types who bond with and help Gengar master Will-O-Wisp. Now, obviously Gengar isn't a fire type Pokemon, but considering the backstories of Ash's strongest fire types, Charizard and Infernape, yeah, Gengar fits right at home with this extended found family. And of course, the fight between Ash and Paul is great. It might just be an unofficial training match, but it reaffirms Ash's skill and ability to formulate new strategies at a moment's notice, while also showing that Paul is still the powerful and menacing trainer he was when we first met him like 15 years ago, even with this slightly more friendly disposition. It's a perfect episode to lead up to Ash's greatest challenge yet, and that quality is only amplified if you've followed the series as long as I have. The story of Pokemon Sword and Shield is not one remembered super fondly by most fans, and I think the fact that the entire plot, start to finish, was adapted into a 4-episode arc without missing a single story beat says something about the quality of that story. Not sure what it says exactly, but it certainly says something. One thing's for sure, it says a lot about me that I'd put the anime adaptation of the most hated Pokemon story in recent years on my top 10 list. Not sure what, but it certainly says something. Sword and Shield, The Legends Awaken, the climax of the Darkest Day storyline ripped straight from the games, is a fantastic and faithful adaptation of Sword and Shield's exciting climactic fight with Eternatus. Typically, when the Pokemon anime adapts a game's plot, it can be very hit or miss, and I think that often comes down to the disconnect from injecting the game's story into the anime. Like, the Team Galactic episodes of the Diamond and Pearl anime are certainly good and interesting, but the most lasting impact they had throughout the series itself was that in one Team Galactic focused episode, James's Carnivine learned Vine Whip. Whoop-de-frickin-do. This episode holds a ton of value towards the story of Pokémon Journeys. I mean, this is the episode where Ash's Riolu evolves into Lucario, and Go's Raboot evolves into Cinderace. Both Ash's battle with Chairman Rose and Go's battle with Oleana are great, showing off the quick thinking and ingenuity both boys have when it comes to a tough battle. And of course, the battle against Eternatus is just as much of a showstopper as it is in the games, with Zacian and Zamazenta arriving to help defeat the monster and stop the Darkest Day. It's a densely packed episode with a ton of cool moments. Like, this is the only time we see Gigantamax Meowth in the anime, and it's a joy to see that as Eternatus is causing Pokemon to Dynamax and go on a rampage, Meowth still has the willpower to only focus on following the boss's orders. I also love that this is the first time in Pokemon Journeys that Leon isn't portrayed as this uber-powerful representation of Ash's end goal. Instead, he's given character and faults that set him up to be further endeared and humbled by the Darkest Day experience, which makes his eventual battle with Ash way more satisfying. Oh, and Go catches Eternatus. For a character whose primary motivation is catch every Pokemon, this is a massive step towards that goal. Maybe this episode has too much going on, but I think of it as this episode having so much going on that there's bound to be something for everyone in this episode. And for me, that something is everything. This is such a cool episode, I can't help but just gush about it. Go is a character who gets a lot of hate, and I personally don't think it's entirely justified. Like, sure, you can dislike a character for whatever reason you want, but there are people who despise Go and everything surrounding him, and I just don't get it. I love Go. Personally, he's one of my favorite main characters in any Pokemon anime series, and episodes that focus on him are usually pretty great. I'll defend episodes like Healing the Healer and Kicking It From Here to Tomorrow as long as I need to. And another episode that a lot of people dislike is Not Too Close for Comfort, the episode where Go Sobble evolves into Drizzile. This one's in my top 5. The Pokemon anime has this uncanny ability to take Pokemon that don't look so great in the games and give them so much personality just in how they look and act. So I appreciate this episode for giving me a bigger appreciation for Drizzile, a Pokemon we all initially wrote off as looking weird to say the least. I know Cinderace is Go's main Pokemon, but I've always liked his relationship with Inteleon more. He was much more experienced when he started seriously training Sobble, and definitely learned from his struggles with Scorbunny and Raboot. Compare Go's response to when Scorbunny wanted to learn a new move against when Sobble wanted to learn a new move, and it's immediately obvious how much Go's grown over the series. I haven't started talking about the actual episode, have I? I adore this episode because it feels unlike any other episode of Pokemon. Go Sobble evolves into Drizzile, and then falls into a depression since it wanted to evolve into Inteleon. The episode has a very melancholic feeling to it, as Drizzile slums around Cerise Park, ignoring and even lashing out as other Pokemon try to play with it, eventually secluding itself in a small dark cave. Go tries to encourage it that it can still evolve into Inteleon if they train together, saying everything he can to try to make it feel better, but Drizzile just wants to be alone. It's forced out of its cave by Cinderace, and Go shows off Drizzile to Ash and Chloe, expressing how cool it is, and Drizzile responds with a silent, single tear that allows it to camouflage itself and leave. It's such a small, understated reaction, and it's one of the rawest emotions I've ever seen in an episode of Pokemon. And it came from the purple and green-haired lizard that throws water balloons for fun. The real shining moment and main reason this episode resonates so deeply with me comes near the end, when Go finds Drizzile atop an abandoned building, staring at the stars. He talks to Drizzile about his own experiences as a kid, not wanting to play with others and being frustrated when his teachers would ask him why he felt that way. This isn't a random bit of information about Go. We've seen from the beginning of Pokémon Journeys how emotional and socially inept Go can be at times. But since he's experienced major character growth, mostly from raising Scorbunny to Raboot to Cinderace, it's not an aspect of his character that's focused on too much outside of Pokemon Journey's earlier episodes. That being said, these traits that caused a rift in Go and Raboot's relationship are now being used to allow Go to empathize with Drizzile. It's just really smart character writing to me. Go doesn't know what Drizzile is feeling, and he's not sure if Drizzile knows what it's feeling. And that's okay. He recognizes that he can't make the situation any better by forcing Drizzile to open up, so he decides to back off and let Drizzile come to terms with its emotions at its own pace, and when it's willing to open up, Go will be there to support it. It's an incredibly sweet and intimate moment that speaks volumes to how much Go genuinely cares about all of his Pokemon. And I love that the ending doesn't reset to the status quo and have Drizzile rejoin Go's team. It instead stays in its cave, and Go patiently waits for the day Drizzile will let him in. There are a lot of different ways to overcome depression, and there are a lot of different ways to support people with depression. This episode may not be relatable to some people, but based on my experiences with depression and frustration at not being able to understand my feelings, it really means a lot to me that there's an episode of Pokemon that says, it's okay to not understand. It's okay to take time for yourself. There's no rush. You will get through this at your own pace. It's such a mature take for a show aimed at children that I can't help but commend it. It might be an unpopular opinion, but this episode is a true standout for me. There are a lot of battles in Pokémon Journeys thanks to Ash's participation in the World Coronation series, and while they vary a lot in quality, for the most part they all offer something exciting. Of these episodes, my personal favorite has to be Ash vs. Rinto in the episode Beyond Chivalry, aiming to be a Leak Master. This episode is the conclusion of a short training arc focusing on Ash and Farfetch'd, and it surprisingly had a lot riding on it. Farfetch'd had barely any screen time prior to this, with the first stretch of journeys focused on development between Ash and Riolu. But following Riolu's evolution, Farfetch'd took the spotlight before it even had a chance to become the weak link of Ash's Journeys team. It had a great showing in Trials of a Budding Master, but its fighting style was super unrefined and relied heavily on overwhelming the opponent with its raw power, something made explicit through the mysterious new character Rinto. Afterwards, Ash and Farfetch'd train with Wickstrom of the Kalos Elite Four, where Farfetch'd trains hard, learns new technique, and grows much more connected to Ash. So this episode has the buildup of 2 dedicated Farfetch'd stories leading up to it. It needs to be worth all of that hype. I mean, you know where I put it on the list. It's a fantastic battle. What I love most about the Ash vs. Rinto rematch is its structure. The battle is essentially split into 3 parts, each turning point building on Ash and Farfetch'd bonds to naturally lead to the conclusion of the episode. Farfetch'd's evolution into Sirfetch'd and Ash's victory over Rinto. The first part is a good showcase of what Ash and Farfetch'd directly learned from Wickstrom, using Detect to dodge attacks. It also poses Rinto as a threat, being unfazed by this new technique and easily battling around it, leading to Gallade cutting Farfetch'd Leak with Feint, completely shutting down the move Ash and Farfetch'd mastered together. The second part has Ash call back to the training with Wickstrom, but in a much more unexpected and creative way. By using the 2 parts of its now broken Leak, Farfetch'd can mimic Aegislash's sword and shield fighting style. It works for a bit, but it doesn't take long for Rinto to shut that down as well and berate Ash and Farfetch'd. Ash refuses to give up on Farfetch'd though, praising its determination and strength, which encourages Farfetch'd to keep fighting with its unorthodox new fighting style. And using that style, as well as Detect, it's able to take the offensive and land 3 critical hits against Gallade to turn the tides of the match. And then, Sir Camon arrives. Part 3, the grand finale. Sirfetch'd and Gallade clash with their attacks, and now seeing Ash and Sirfetch'd meet the potential they showed when they first met him, Rinto makes a risky strategy of his own, purposefully letting Gallade take a hit from Night Slash to power itself up with its Justified ability. And as Gallade's blade is held back by Sirfetch'd's shield, Ash tells Sirfetch'd that they should keep getting stronger together, because Leon is waiting for them. Not gonna lie, that single line of dialogue always gets me really hyped. The battle then concludes as Sirfetch'd and Gallade trade Night Slashes and Sirfetch'd comes out on top. It's almost poetic that even after they prove their ability to adapt, train, and live up to the potential Rinto keeps telling them he sees, Ash and Sirfetch'd win the battle thanks to Sirfetch'd's raw strength, the main aspect Rinto chastised Ash and Sirfetch'd for relying on. This battle is one of the best. It's got stellar action, off-the-wall strategy, twists, turns, great animation, strong emotional and narrative payoff, and outside the battle itself, this episode has a really cute moment where Grookey uses its power to heal a weakened Bellsprout that Go catches. I bet you thought I'd complain that scene took time away from the battle, but the battle's plenty exciting and entertaining on its own, and we stand Go and Grookey in this house. Getting more than you battled for is, in my humble opinion, a straightforward, perfect episode of the Pokemon anime, and especially a perfect episode of Pokemon Journeys. It has just about everything that I look for in a good Pokemon episode, and then some. It's a great adventure story, has great action, a lot of fan service, and an uplifting and inspirational ending. This episode has Ash and Go visit and investigate the mysterious Sero Island, as Professor Cerise has picked up an energy reading similar to Mew. From there, it's an exciting adventure story where the boys explore this unknown environment. with Go making use of several of his Pokemon to help navigate the terrain with some really creative solutions to the problems that arise. My favorite part is just the fact that when Go learned about this mysterious island where he could potentially find Mew, the Pokemon his dream is centered around, he brought Caterpie with him. And it ends up contributing in a meaningful way by making a zipline with its string shot. Listen, when Go's massive arsenal of Pokemon is used well, it's used really well. But the boys don't find Mew, instead finding Mewtwo. And yes, it is the same Mewtwo from Pokemon the first movie. This is such a great callback, and one that's totally unexpected. Mewtwo debuted in the main series of the anime, but it's very rare for the Pokemon anime to reference events from the Pokemon movies. And it's even rarer for it to be such a spectacle as Ash and Go having a battle of dreams against Mewtwo. It's fantastic, and the battle itself is really creative and fun, showing off both Ash and Go's skill and teamwork while not underselling Mewtwo as the ultimate Pokemon for even a second. This episode has everything that you could possibly ask for in a great Pokemon episode and more. With how much is packed into it, as well as the cinematic intro that harkens back to the openings of most Pokemon movies, this episode brings back all of the excitement and spectacle of watching a Pokemon movie, which is a really impressive feat. My only complaint is that the battle with Mewtwo, while great, isn't the best this series has to offer. No, that honor would go to... Oh yeah, you knew this episode was going to be on the list. The only surprising thing is that it's not number 1. From the day it aired, the Finals 4 partner went down as one of the greatest episodes of the Pokemon anime. Does it have flaws? What are you, a dweeb? This was the culmination of over 2 decades worth of story, 2 decades worth of adventures, 2 decades worth of hardships, and 2 decades of Ash Ketchum trying to be the very best like no one ever was. Let's get the obvious out of the way. This is the most fluid, gorgeous, and insanely well animated episode in the entire Pokemon anime, and I'll be surprised if it ever gets topped. I wish I could show clips from the episode itself because stills really can't do it justice. But if you've seen the episode, you've seen the episode. You know it looks fantastic. As for the battle itself, it goes without saying that the best animated episode of the anime is going to be a showstopper of a battle, and it totally is. From the quick Gigantamax showdown between Cinderace and Pikachu to the absolute slugfest that is Pikachu vs Charizard, this battle is non-stop action, on-the-fly strategies, really tense back and forths, and gorgeous Sakuga. And just when you think it's over and Pikachu's going to fall, it can feel the cheers and support of all of its teammates throughout the years. And when I say all, I mean everyone. Butterfree, Pidgeot, Primeape, even Pokemon Ash didn't officially own like Larvitar and Solgaleo. Even Ambipom was there. They really made sure everyone was behind Ash and Pikachu for their biggest battle ever. I shouldn't have to explain anything else about this episode. It's already become one of the best episodes of the entire series, and it will stay a historic spectacle in the Pokemon anime forever. The only question now is, Silvery, you put this at number 2? What could you possibly think is better? Well, Pokémon Journeys is not a show for everyone, and it has a lot of episodes that might not be for everyone. A lot of episodes rely heavily on references and fan service, and the simple fact is that not everyone has seen all 1,000 episodes of the Pokemon series that have led up to Journeys. That being said, everyone knows Ash and Pikachu, and everyone's at least seen some part of the Pokemon anime before Ash's climactic showdown with Leon. And that's why an episode like that is able to resonate with pretty much everyone, myself included. But this is my own personal list, and I have seen all 1,000 episodes of the Pokemon series that have led up to Journeys. And if you'll allow me to be biased, the Homecoming Crown is my favorite episode of Pokemon Journeys, as well as my favorite episode of the Pokemon anime. There's a lot of debate over which series of the Pokemon anime is the best, and there will never be a definitive answer. Everyone has their own section of the Pokemon anime that resonates with them the most, and for me, That's the Sun and Moon series. I don't want to get into why because this is a video about Pokémon Journeys, but it's thanks to the love and appreciation that Pokémon Journeys pays to the Pokémon anime's long history that an episode like this can exist. Lily is a bit of a tragic character at times, especially at the beginning of the Sun and Moon series. I bring this up less so about her inability to touch Pokémon, and more about her broken family life and how it relates to her trauma. Lily and Gladion have a lot of love for each other, but Gladion makes himself sparse around her since he rebelled against their mother's organization and is training Type Null, the Aether Foundation's experiment that was heavily involved in Lily's trauma. Compared to the games, Luzamine is a much more kind and loving mother who is well-meaning, but tends to ignore her children to focus on her work. Said work being the study of Ultra Beast, which is another big part of Lily's trauma. And this hyper-focus that Luzamine has on her work stems from her own trauma from watching her husband get sucked into an Ultra wormhole and presumably die. This family's got it rough. But throughout the series, we see them all grow not only as individuals, but as a much closer and genuine family. Sun and Moon ends with Lily leaving Alola with her family to find her missing father, who has revealed to be still alive thanks to Tapu Fini's mist. That's an abridged version of Lily's story in Sun and Moon, but the two key points are her overcoming the traumatic experience with Silvally and Nihilego, and reconnecting her broken family. And while both goals are satisfyingly concluded at the end of Sun and Moon, we're left with this open ending. Lily, Gladion, and Luzamine are together again and happy, but there's still the question of whether or not they'll find Lily's father. It's the standard ending that Ash and all of his companions find themselves at the end of each series. Ash may be the strongest trainer in the world, but he's still not a Pokemon Master. Iris may be the champion of Unova, but she's not a Dragon Master yet. May, Dawn, Serena, the Alola students, everyone has taken major steps towards their goals and have grown so much throughout their respective series, but they never definitively complete their goals. The girls aren't top coordinators yet. Brock is still a doctor in training. Silent? Did Silent ever work towards a goal? Naturally, when we catch up with the Alola students for the first time in Pokémon Journeys, everyone has taken steps towards their dreams but are still working hard, Lily included. And then, at episode 111, Pokémon Journeys does something completely unprecedented for the Pokémon anime. It concludes a character's story. The Homecoming Crown follows Lily and her family as they travel to the Crown Tundra in the hopes of finding Mon, Lily and Gladion's father, and Luzamine's husband who went missing after an accident involving an Ultra wormhole. By using Mon's Zoroark and Lily's recently recovered Magearna, the family is able to locate Mon in the Crown Tundra, the once researcher of Ultra Space now living a quiet, isolated life in the icy land, having completely forgotten who he once was. It's absolutely devastating. All this effort to find Mon and bring him back to Alola, only for him to not know anything about his past and not realizing that he has a family. But he seems safe and content, which is good, living peacefully in the Crown Tundra with his daughter Lily. Wait, what? We learn in this episode that when Mon was sent to Ultra Space, he was rescued by a shiny Nihilego, who, unlike the mindless parasitic Nihilego previously seen in the anime, seems caring and forges a connection. It uses its abilities to connect to Mon's memories, brings him through an Ultra wormhole to the Crown Tundra, and disguises itself as Lily based on Mon's memories, growing up and keeping Mon company all of this time. But Lily and her family don't know that. They only know Nihilego as the dangerous Ultra Beast that has caused so much strife for this family, traumatizing Lily, abducting and fusing with Luzamine, indirectly leading Gladion to run away from home with Type Null, and now keeping the family from truly reuniting. But the family doesn't give up hope, looking for something, anything to bring back Mon's memories. And they realize all the windows are dirty, all the mirrors have been removed, and Mon's Aether Foundation clothes are hidden away. Nihilego tries to attack Lily, but Ash and Pikachu arrive to rescue her, and Gladion protects his mother when Nihilego tries to attack her as well. Lily and Gladion realize Nihilego removed all of the mirrors so Mon wouldn't regain his memories, because if he learned that it wasn't his daughter, he would leave it. but it kept the mirrors and clothes hidden instead of throwing them out because it truly loves and cherishes Mon. And so, Lily hands Mon the mirror and he remembers who he is. This is one of the most cathartic moments in the Pokemon anime. Hell, in the entire Pokemon franchise. Keep in mind, this plotline of Mon being accidentally sucked into an Ultra Wormhole and losing his memory isn't part of the Sun and Moon games. Instead, we only learn fractured bits through optional dialogue and inferences. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon re-explored this storyline, but its conclusion is a lot more melancholic and honestly frustrating. Mon returns to the Aether Foundation, has a brief conversation with Luzamine, and then leaves, and that's it. Gladion asks Luzamine if she's okay with ending things like that, and she says yes. Mon's accident is the event that led Luzamine to psychotically obsess over Ultra Beasts, caused their family to completely break apart, and kicks off the plot of the entire Sun and Moon game, which culminates in region-wide disaster, and yet it's completely ignored in the story, and given a very sad and disappointing resolution in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. The anime could have followed suit or simply left this plotline unresolved, but instead, it tells its own story. One where Mon's disappearance is brought up and important. One where Luzamine, Gladion, and Lily are much kinder and open about their feelings, even the ones they'd rather not address. And one where their family is reunited. And that's not all, because after the family embraces, finally all together after everything they've been through as both individuals and a family, Nihilego tries to leave. But Lily invites it to stay with them. Nihilego didn't keep Mon's memory hidden for any malicious purpose. It was lonely and scared that someone it had grown so attached to would suddenly decide to leave it. And everyone's able to recognize that and thank Nihilego for saving Mon. Keep in mind, Nihilego are the cause of so much agony for Lily, Gladion, and Luzamine, and yet they all willingly and excitedly accept this one into their family. This episode not only pays off the Mon storyline, but it wraps a nice little bow on Lily's entire Sun and Moon character arc. Going from a cold but kind and well-meaning girl unable to touch Pokemon, to someone who is able to accept and see the good in a Pokemon that caused her and her family so much strife. To summarize this entire episode in one word, it's beautiful. And that's my list. I hope this helps shed light on why I think Pokémon Journeys really was something special. I doubt I'll change many people's opinions on the series, but if even one person gives the series a second chance, or I get someone new interested in checking it out, that'd be a-okay by me. Let me know what your favorite episodes of Pokémon Journeys are in the comments, and let me know if there are other anime series I should talk about in the future. That's it for now. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and always remember that the future is in the palm of your hands. Thanks for watching.